Hello, everybody. It's Will here. I'm back again for a bonus episode. I know it's been a busy week, but we didn't want to let too much time pass without focusing on the ongoing ICE raids that are taking place across the country right now, the ongoing assaults on immigrant communities by federal law enforcement. I know I've been, if you've probably been watching and protesting from wherever you live. But we want to focus on Los Angeles today. And joining me now is LA City Council member Hugo Soto-Martinez. So, Hugo, welcome back.
Thank you so much, Will. Thank you for having me.
I know it's been a very busy day for you, but just for our listeners, from your perspective, what exactly is happening with ICE in the LA area right now?
It truly feels like a federal takeover of our city. They're really trying to take away our sovereignty as a city. We have ICE agents with other federal agencies literally going to different neighborhoods every single day. We're getting hundreds of calls coming in to the Rapid Response Network, which is meant to sort of take in all the different reports of ICE in the area. They are abducting people in the middle of the street. They are not identifying themselves. They are arresting citizens. They are going into businesses. They are not operating with any warrants. They are just literally just grabbing people. We don't know where they are. We know they're in jail and in their custody, but we don't know where. They're not being given access to their families or their attorneys. And every day is just in a different area, right? And for folks, if you've been to Los Angeles, it's a very spread out city. And so we're having to respond sort of at all corners of the city. But people are fighting back, they're protesting. We're doing as best as we can, but it does feel like we're being hit on all sides right now.
Can you give us any perspective on what went down at Dodgers Stadium today between ICE and the LAPD?
So this morning, we heard that ICE was doing a staging out of basically one of the Dodger Stadium entryways, one of the gates. Staging is where they show up and they go out into the neighborhood and bring people back and incarcerate them. And so they were there. Whether they had the permission to be there, I don't know. But they left because people started reporting them and people started showing up to protest. Then we heard that they came back and more protesters started coming. And eventually, LAPD apparently was called. But eventually, ICE left and the protests went away. And, we don't know where else they went. But they're certainly out there in our neighborhood trying to pick our people up.
I mean, we've been, just here in New York, we've been seeing people get taken out of immigration court by masked officers who don't identify themselves. I mean, like thousands of similar events are probably happening all over the country. Los Angeles seems to be the focal point of the nation's attention right now. So let me ask you, what are you hearing from your constituents and your community right now about what they're experiencing?
My constituents are feeling so much outrage of their parents being disappeared, their loved ones being taken away from them. There's a lot of fear and paralysis. If you walk around some of the ethnic enclaves of our city, they look like ghost towns. People are just afraid to go out. People are canceling events, family gatherings, not going to their graduations. So it's just a mixture of so many different emotions, anger, frustration, fear, you name it. But, I think we're really trying to tap into the resilient nature or the resiliency of the immigrant community. We know we've gone through so much. And so try and empower people, in the face of this really horrible threat that's happening right now.
Well, you say you feel like the federal law enforcement is taking away the sovereignty of LA. You're on the LA City Council. What is the LA? How would you describe the LA City government's response to this? The incursion into Los Angeles by federal law enforcement.
We're trying to continue to get the word out there that LA City will not collaborate with ICE. That is a city. We passed our sanctuary city policy a few months ago, But there's a lot of distrust. We saw LAPD. This is gonna sound crazy, but apparently, the federal agents called 911 because they felt that they were in danger, and LAPD responded to that. Under the guise that they need to protect anybody that calls 911. And so they gave safe passage to ICE. They cleared the crowd, and people and ICE took our family members. So it's a lot going on. We're really trying to lead with our values, but we're just asking everybody to keep their eyes on the prize, and that's keeping families together. But there's been images where LAPD is not helping.
Hugo, when you hear the people who are the sort of the engine driving this policy in the Trump administration and elsewhere in the federal government, they talk about undocumented immigration as an invasion. And what we're seeing now, what you're describing, seems like a sort of an occupying force taking root in an American city. From your perspective, what do you think the goal is? Like, what's the end game for the people who are promoting this strategy of just, I don't know, like lawless press gangs roaming the street, rounding up people and taking them out of schools, parks, graduations, courts, etc.? I mean, like, what's the end game here? What is their goal?
I think they are trying to achieve their white nationalist agenda, their white nationalist fascist agenda. And, we should be using the term ethnic cleansing, right? Like they talk about this, right? About brown people and multicultural cities, that these folks are invading. I mean, it's just, to me, it is just like the most despicable parts of America, just rooted in racism, that plantation capitalism mentality. And so that's what I think it is. It is a white nationalist fascist agenda that they're trying to achieve. And the way they achieve that is by getting rid of anyone that doesn't look like them.
In Los Angeles right now, what can you tell us about like how the community is responding to and stopping these ICE raids? Like, let's say ICE shows up to a Home Depot parking lot. How has the community been responding to that on the ground?
It's been a bit of a challenge because ICE and those other federal agencies are also sort of shifting their tactics, right? In the first couple of days, what they were doing was doing this sort of grandiose operations where they would show up, but they quickly realized that if they did that, it took more time. And so people responded to that. There was a situation in downtown LA in the fashion district where people protesting surrounded the business. And so ICE couldn't get out. And that's the one where ICE called LAPD. That was an incredible display of solidarity and militancy. But now what we're seeing is ICE is not doing these more long term operations. They're showing up to a place and they're gone in 30 minutes. And something like that happened this morning. In my district, it was at a Home Depot. They were there at 7:30, and by 8 a.m. they were gone. And they took 20 people in the most violent possible way. And so, yeah, it's been hard to react now because they're just in and out so quickly.
I mean, like, going back to the agenda of the people who are fomenting this, I'm thinking of comments that were quoted in the media from Stephen Miller, the sort of Führer of this ongoing ethnic cleansing operation. And it was about how he was berating the heads of ICE in D.C. for seeking to serve criminal warrants. And he was saying, don't bother with the criminals. Just let's go to Home Depot right now and round up 20, 30 people. Go to 7-Eleven right now. You can find undocumented people there. Just round them up. I mean, doesn't this put the lie to this whole idea that this is about like removing dangerous criminals from American society? And that, like, as you said, that this is more about just the ethnic cleansing of America?
Oh, I completely agree, Will. I think the mask has been taken off. We a lot of us were saying this is never about criminals. This is about a white nationalist agenda. It's about the ethnic, what they trying to achieve an ethnic cleansing of our communities. And what they are doing is showing that they're going after people who are just looking for work. They're going after street vendors who are just providing food for the community. They're showing up to, schools. They showed up at a domestic violence shelter. in the city. I mean, that is like anybody is on their target right now, and it's just it's just on full display, like completely. The fascists is on full display right now.
Well, like a big part about that is just sort of fomenting a state of fear and doubt in the minds of everyone, be you undocumented or not, because I think quiet as it's kept, I don't think they actually are able to successfully deport, let's say, 20 or 30 million people in this country. But they're trying to send a message that this country is not welcome to a certain kind of person. And I'm just wondering, in terms of the community responses, in terms of just the numbers of people who are showing up to just blockade the removal of their neighbors from their community. Do you see a sense of has that been a way to counteract this fear, the numbers of people? And what are you seeing that's been successful in terms of stopping these deportations, stopping these removal, just stopping the physical removal of people by, like I said, as you mentioned, masked federal law enforcement that won't present a warrant or show a badge or even identify themselves?
Yeah, that's a great point. The number one defense that we've employed is that people just need to know their rights. It sounds simple, but they still need probable cause to arrest someone, and they're doing it in such a violent way right now that they're not finding that. And so if someone is apprehended, if they stay quiet, if they ask for the attorney, the ICE agents have to prove that there was a probable cause to arrest that person. And we have heard of examples where people have been detained, did not speak, demanded their lawyer, and it turns out that they did not have probable cause, and some of those people have been released. And so we're really trying to get people to understand that they have that right in that moment. And then obviously the second thing is responding to it. The reports come into the hotline, we quickly mobilize, and at the very least, we're able to minimize the damage that they can do because they don't want to be there when people start showing up. And so they'll grab folks and leave. But we know that if we didn't respond in a quick way, they would have had just complete free range to stay in that neighborhood for hours. And so we're at least able to get them out of our neighborhoods as quickly as possible.
I mentioned a second ago that that these disappearances are happening in the context of law enforcement, people in law enforcement who are wearing masks, who don't have badges, who don't show warrants, and who won't identify themselves. If you were just for an average Angelino or a resident of any city, if you saw masked men in a van pull up on a street, grab someone, throw them in the car, don't identify themselves, don't even say they're law enforcement, what should be the appropriate reaction when you see something like that happening?
I mean, and it is happening, more times it's happening quite a bit. People, we have a rapid response hotline in the city, that's being run by different orgs. We ask people to call that hotline, report it, because then we can mobilize our attorneys. We can mobilize, a positive media narrative. If they can record, that's great because it shows the evidence of them, violating people's rights. And then it's just about trying to go on the offense, uplifting the family stories, how they're ripping people apart, how they're violating people's constitutional rights. All that helps because we do have to win this in the court of public opinion.
I mean, you mentioned families, and I think your own background here is relevant. You grew up with undocumented parents, so how does that shape how you're responding to this moment? And what do you think people may not understand about what it's like to live in a family with mixed immigration status, where some family members are documented and some aren't? Because a lot of times we're seeing children who are U.S. citizens who are having their parents removed, their caregivers removed. What do people maybe not understand about the mixed immigration status in America?
Yeah, my parents came to this country undocumented, and they weren't afraid that when they took me to school that, ICE agents would apprehend them, and they went to work. They knew they would come back home to their kids. And in Los Angeles in particular, when you go to the doctor, it's probably an immigrant nurse or immigrant doctor that is seeing you. When you go to the restaurant and order something, it was probably cooked by an immigrant. I mean, the nannies, in the more wealthy areas, are immigrants. The immigrants in Los Angeles touch every part of your life. they are part of the social fabric, and it's what makes Los Angeles beautiful. And so there isn't a single person right now in this city, in my opinion, who is not being touched by this. Somebody knows somebody whose life has been completely turned upside down as a result of these kidnappings.
Yeah, I mean, like the same could certainly be said of the history of New York City, and like Los Angeles being sort of
Yep.
the unofficial like Latino capital of America. I mean, like it's no surprise why they're why you guys are finding yourselves in the crosshairs of this effort. But I want to go back to something you said earlier about LA just passed a sanctuary city law. Sanctuary city is a term that gets thrown around a lot on the right as like it's always like identified as some awful horrible thing, having a sanctuary city. But what does it actually mean to be a sanctuary city? And what would be the difference between in what's happening right now in Los Angeles if it weren't a sanctuary city?
Yeah, that's a great question. Sanctuary city in Los Angeles, it means a few things. Number one, the city of Los Angeles is not going to collaborate with ICE. That they are not going to use our resources, our personnel, anything that's part of the city to further what they're doing. So they're not going to have a partner with the city of Los Angeles, which is the case in many other jurisdictions. And the reason that's important is because what they're trying to do is scale their ability to abduct people. And so them not having access to our workforce is a good thing because they want that to be able to scale up their the number of people that can go do the kidnappings. And then second, that any city property should be considered a safe space. The library will not allow ICE agents to come in unless they have a judicial warrant, which they never have. Our buildings, our sanctuaries, are safe spaces. And so people can look to the city and be like, I can be safe there in the city. And so those are the two, most important things that we can do, and people can have trust in the city. And also, we use our dollars to fund legal defense or other things, food banks, things that immigrants, care about, and we're very proud to do that. But that's what it means to me. It's just like we are not going to be tools of this, of this right-wing government.
I mean, like, well, how would you rate like the mayor, the LAPD, and the city government of LA? Like, have they been living up to that standard?
For the most part, I was not happy that I saw LAPD giving, safe passage to ICE. They should be protecting the people of Los Angeles, not these goons coming in from the federal government. The protests have been as a whole just not a good response. It's been a horrible response. Shooting people with rubber bullets and using tear gas and horses and batons, like. Then all of a sudden the message comes out about that, right? And we stop focusing on who we need to focus on. We need to focus on the families being ripped apart. We need to focus on the federal government trying to do a takeover of our city, and their their white nationalist policy. So, I think there's a lot we can improve. I have not been happy with a couple of things, but overall, I've been inspired by the resiliency of our community.
Well, yeah, I mean, you mentioned the protests, which got a lot of media attention last week because, like the violence of cars getting set on fire. Obviously, that inflames the media. They love a story like that. But we also saw videos of the LAPD shooting rubber bullets and tear gas at peaceful protesters. We saw, journalists getting hit with quote unquote less than lethal rounds. How do you feel when you see that? And is there anything being done to like actually change the way the LAPD or your local police departments respond to protest or civil unrest?
I'm completely outraged by that. And I've said this publicly. The goal we should have right now is focusing on the families, keeping them together, fighting back against Trump and his policies. And anybody who gets in between that should be held accountable. And so when you have these scenes being played out on the air that show the brutality, and especially Saturdays was the worst example. We had like a very peaceful protest, and then it just all of a sudden, you start seeing tear gas and rubber bullets being fired. Like those tactics are unacceptable in the city. But moreover, that becomes the story. The story becomes about what their actions are doing, and all of a sudden, we're not talking about the families who in this moment are like the victims of everything that's going on. And we're not talking about how the federal government's trying to, take over our city. And so everyone needs to be disciplined in this moment. We have some big fish to fry, and we got to focus our energy on those objectives.
Like, you see stories in the national media of, entire neighborhoods that essentially have gone into hiding. You see stories of citizens who are now carrying their passports with them on a day-to-day basis for fear of being stopped by, like I said, masked federal law enforcement agents and being asked to present their papers. I mean, this is very grim stuff. But Ugo, could you just try to render for our listeners here, or maybe people who aren't in Los Angeles or who don't see what's going on here, like a sense of like the fear in any community in Los Angeles right now, but particularly like immigrant and the Latino community right now. Like what is the effect of this on people, even citizens of this country?
I mean, it's like if you go to some parts of our city, they look like ghost towns. The Fashion District, which is it's like it looks like something out of a movie. There's like big bazaar. It's completely empty, and as I mentioned, like everyone knows someone who is an immigrant who's undocumented, and so their lives are being affected because the person they love's life is being affected. And you're right. I literally was talking to some of my friends, and they're like, I'm carrying my passport, and I'm just like even they're afraid just because we know what they're doing is we think what they're doing is like they're racially profiling people, and so even those folks are like afraid to like walk the street, and now we're having to bring documentation that shows that they belong in this country. It's just there's a lot of things going on in the city. There's a lot of fear going on.
Obviously, all of these federal agents, be they DHS or ICE or Border Patrol, like I said, they're essentially occupying Los Angeles right now. But like, they have to stay somewhere. Are they staying in Los Angeles County proper? Like, are they out in the suburbs and hotels? And is there anything that the city government of Los Angeles can do to, I don't know, be a little less hospitable to, to the continued presence of these people, unless they want to, I don't know, show a badge or a warrant or something?
Yeah, so they're staying at hotels, and people are protesting them. There's an Instagram page. I forget the handle, but I think it's like no sleep for ICE or something like that. And so people are going out there protesting in the middle of the night. I think it's a great direct action tactic. We've heard of some of them just having to move because they're dealing with the disturbances, by the public. And so I think those tactics are great. I think what we need right now is just like normal people doing something, to get involved. And this is a great thing that we're doing.
A lot of the focus has been on Los Angeles, LA County proper, but obviously, like this, what we're talking about here has expanded very much into the suburbs of Los Angeles and sort of satellite cities like Santa Ana, or places like there was a raid at the Santa Fe swap meet, like these other like satellite cities that are also hubs of like Latino cultural life and activity. But like the issue here is that people in the like what we think of as the city of LA are constantly moving between municipalities, either by walking, driving, commuting to work, that crosses these municipal lines. So what level of coordination has there been between LA County proper and these surrounding municipalities? And how can these cities possibly, I don't know, maybe coordinate like a more unified resistance to these actions that are going on?
Yeah, no, that's a great description of the city of LA, right? It's just really LA County has 88 cities.
I mean, West Hollywood has its own mayor. I was dumbfounded to learn that as someone who just merely visits Los Angeles.
I know, right? Little old West Hollywood does have a mayor indeed. I think there's been some coordination. Now, luckily, the nonprofits, they don't serve, the city of Los Angeles. They serve, anyone that comes through their doors. Multiple cities have their different hotlines. We have our rapid response hotline. Orange County has their own. Different cities have, their own hotlines. They have their own level of volunteers. Much of that coordination is centralized. It's the training is very similar. Just last week, we had over 90 elected officials come together, with a unified message and a unified strategy. So, we're trying to, that's the challenge of the LA region is just so sprawled out. And so we're definitely doing as much coordination as we can. But sometimes it can be a bit challenging because it's just so spread out.
Another issue here, like in light of the protests last week, is that the National Guard has been deployed to Los Angeles. Even the Marines. I saw the Marines made one arrest of someone as they were guarding a federal office building in downtown Los Angeles. I mean, this would seem to be like quite an escalation. What is the status of either the National Guard or the U.S. military in Los Angeles right now? And once again, has the city government asked for this? And like, would you like them to leave?
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is this example of the National Guard being federalized, right? So they've been taken over by the federal government, and the Marines being brought in against their own civilians. There's only been a few times in American history where this has actually happened, that the federal government has brought in military against its own people. And the last time it happened is when we were trying to desegregate the schools in the South. I think in 1963 it happened in Alabama. And the last time before that was, World War II. And so this is really...
the Civil War before that, yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. So it's like this, we have the federal government taking over the National Guard and bringing in Marines against its own civilians. This is like a constitutional crisis to the highest degree. These are the things that we've heard in military dictatorships. This is not what happens in the United States of America. And what makes it even more, terrifying is that whether the president has this power is being decided in the federal court. And 2 of the 3 judges that are going to make the decision on this are Trump appointees. So we're not expecting the federal court to be with, be in the right decision here, and in my opinion, the right decision. And so this expansion of executive power, because that's what we're really talking about, is like, does the president have the ability to do this? I don't know what's going to happen, but this is why we need like a mass movement of working class people to stop this. Just like people stopped apartheid in South Africa. Just the way, Gandhi and in India toppled the British Empire. Like, we're talking about that kind of level of urgency right now.
If you could speak to any California National Guardsman or woman who is stationed in Los Angeles right now, or even Marines, probably from San Diego, if you could say something to them, what would be your message to soldiers and National Guardsmen who are in Los Angeles right now?
I mean, I think I would, say to them, we all believe, if we believe in the Constitution, we said we would defend against any enemies, foreign or domestic. And what we have right now is an enemy within the United States of America that is the president of the United States. He's saying that, he's trying to stop an insurrection in the city of LA and trying to get the feds, the ICE agents to do their job. The real insurrection happened on January 6th. That was the real insurrection. And this president pardoned every single person that was part of that action. And so if they were in front of me, I would tell them that, and that they have an obligation to uphold the Constitution no matter who is giving the orders.
I talked earlier about like the language which immigration is being used, like the language being used to describe immigration, and it's being described as an invasion. And if you believe polls, people are unhappy. People in America are unhappy with the state of undocumented or illegal immigrants in this country. But then you see, but then when the same voters actually see what is going on in Los Angeles, or when it affects someone they know, it immediately becomes very unpopular. So, what would you say to an American citizen who views undocumented immigrants in LA, in Southern California, or anywhere in this country as like an enemy or a threat to them? Is there some way that person can be reached, or what are they not seeing? What do they need to know?
I think they need to understand like who truly is manipulating their the way they're like. Look, I think when people are angry and frustrated, it's easy to find someone to scapegoat, right? And what are people upset about? They're upset about their economic conditions. They're upset that they have to work 2, 3 jobs, or the cost of housing, or lack of good jobs. And those frustrations are absolutely valid. Like that's the thing that fuels me every single day to fight for working people. But that problem has not been the result of someone coming from Venezuela, because they're trying to find a better life, or like my parents who immigrated here, to try to improve their lives. It is the capitalist billionaire class that has used this system to benefit and enrich themselves to a degree that is basically sickening. And it's not the person serving your food. It's not the person taking your temperature at the hospital. It are the capitalist billionaires who are doing this. And I know it's like I'm simplifying it right now, but it's like I think it's going to require an analysis where we really put the blame on the people who deserve it. And it's not the folks street vending in Hollywood. It's those rich people.
And obviously, like the economy of California and the economy of the United States, runs to a large degree on the economic exploitation of everyone, but particularly of undocumented immigrants. And I think it's telling that these raids of mass law enforcement officers are just taking the people who are doing these jobs and not the people who are hiring them. Like, if this were a real concern, like wouldn't the way to stem the demand for undocumented labor would be to make a big show out of arresting all of the people who hire them?
I mean, look, one of the biggest crimes in Los Angeles County is wage theft, right? We're the wage theft capital of the United States. And who's getting jacked, every 2 weeks or every week in their paycheck? It's the very people that are being attacked right now, right? It's like every single company benefits from immigrant labor. I mean, I just had a friend tell me that he was trying to get some work done at his house, and the contractor was like, I can't do it because I don't have any workers. We got the Palisades fire and Altadena fires that need to be rebuilt. Well, guess who's going to build that? The very people that are being attacked right now. So it's just it's a complete hypocrisy from the companies. On one end, they're benefiting from that, but even when they're not when their own workforce is being attacked, like they're remaining silent. It's really, really cowardice on behalf of the business community.
Obviously, like the ability to exploit undocumented people to work at lower wages is obviously not something to be celebrated. But like, what would just a better, more humane system that like acknowledges not just the humanity of people from from Latino countries or just immigrants in general, but like what would like a humane labor policy in this country look like, so that like we don't have to say, well, we obviously need undocumented immigration in this country because like they do all the shitty jobs that no one else wants to do, or will work for a lower wage. Like, I mean, is there a way out of this like pitting people's interests against one another? And also like a sort of like, I don't know, like there's a certain liberal condescension in being so proud of like, oh, how much we love and need undocumented labor because we love exploiting them so much.
Oh, completely. I mean, it's like the neoliberal sort of policies, right? It's like that's they pretend to be with working people, but at the same time they're benefiting from the exploitation of their labor. I've always said, joining a union is one of the most important things people can do, because it really crystallizes the relationship between working people and the corporations. It's like if you're working at a workplace and you don't have a union, then that means you don't have power. That means that your boss is the one dictating, what your worth is, what your wages, what your benefits, what hours, what days off you have, whether you can take a sick day or a PTO, or whether they can promote you. They have control over your entire life and everything, and that mobility that you have as a worker. When you have a union, you can create a structure of power where you take all those tools, because all those things, the days off, the hours, the promotion, those are levers of power that they have on you. And so taking away those levers from your boss and putting them in a union contract where you have that power, I think really crystallizes for working people that the true conflict, the true sort of battle that we need to have is between workers and the capitalist class. And you create a level of solidarity among among your coworkers that cuts through race, age, nationality, and or any of that. It just really makes it about the workers versus the corporations. And so I'm always going to be a believer in building the labor movement as much as you can, because it does have that effect with working people.
Well, I remember years ago when we first had you on, when you were running for city council, sort of part of your story and part of your pitch was that you were a union organizer who organized hotel workers before you ran for office. And I remember part of that story was that as a union member, you helped stop an ICE raid at your workplace. I'm wondering if you could share that story and what do you think can be drawn from that that example of what you did as organizing a union to protect your workers from an ICE raid.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me of that. Good memory, Will. It gave us the ability to just fight back. I mean, I don't know if it was DHS or ICE, one of those, federal goons showed up, and people were terrified. They were terrified about what was going on. But because we had a union contract, the employer had to notify us. We were there immediately. We did the Know Your Rights training. We prepared people how to act, because we knew ICE was going to come back. And so, we prepared folks, and we were in front of it. We were prepared. It wasn't, people were not operating from a position of fear and panic. People were operating from a position of knowledge and strength and solidarity. And that we need that more than ever. But it's a great example of how, an organized unit of workers, in a union, can have that ability. That would have never happened if those workers didn't have a union.
Last question here. This is my LA friends have given me a little clue to what's going on here. But they say that there is a petition going around right now in Los Angeles about the minimum wage. Can you first explain what that petition is and how, strangely, what this has to do with the anti-ICE protests going on right now?
Well, I think we can never separate that a large the biggest percentage of workers in the city of LA are immigrants. And so to me, the labor movement and the immigrants' rights movement are one and the same. They really go hand in hand. And so, one of the key legislation that I myself and Councilmember Price and others worked on was raising the minimum wage for tourism workers to $30 by 2028, which in my opinion was a great victory, took a lot of energy. The unions and the workers really took the lead in this, and we were happy to partner with them. And so we go through this 2-year process of, passing a law, which I won't bore the audience here, but we finally got it done. And what did these greedy corporations do, right? They knew that if they collected enough signatures in the following 30 days after it was signed into law, then they can take that decision that was made by 15 council members and signed by the mayor, that they could force that to a vote of the city of LA. And they're spending literally millions and millions of dollars so that they don't give people a raise. Truly, truly despicable. And who are those workers? As I mentioned, immigrants, mostly immigrants. And so in the middle of all this stuff that we're dealing with ICE, we're also dealing with a handful of corporations, like United and Delta, and I think the Hotel Lodge Association is in there, where they're really trying to hurt working people through other means. And so we're fighting back on both of them right now. So there's a lot going on.
Hugo, lastly, I guess it's sort of a reiteration of a question I asked earlier, but like I said, if you've been like I have, watching or protesting what you're seeing, whether you're in New York, LA, anywhere in this country right now, I think people really feel frightened by what's going on right now, and they feel powerless in a way. What would your message be to people who see what's going on and are horrified by it, but feel like what can I do? Or they just feel like terrified by the prospect of facing off with masked goons with guns.
If people feel fear, I think that's a very natural emotion. But I would say don't give them what they want. That's what they want. They want people to feel that they don't have power, that whatever they do, it's not going to stop what the federal government is doing. And I think that's just absolute baloney. Like as I mentioned earlier, apartheid was toppled in South Africa, and it was a movement that did it. And we can point to tons of movements. In the Philippines, they brought down a military dictatorship. In Chile, we did the same thing. I mentioned Gandhi and the nonviolent movement in India that toppled the British Empire, which was the most powerful empire at the time. People have shown that being militant, being peaceful, nonviolent, those are some of the most powerful tools that we can build, having class solidarity. And so despite everything that's going on here, I do look back at those examples and I'm like, let's just follow many of the things they did. And if we do it, we can beat this fascist administration.
LA City Councilman Hugo Soto-Martinez, thanks so much for your time and for sharing a little bit of your perspective about what's going on in LA right now. We'll be watching closely, and best of luck to you and all of your constituents in resisting this occupation of your city right now.
Thank you so much, Will.